Ladies and gentlemen, in this corner, we have Miss Diana Gonzalez Lebu. And in our other corner, weighing in at 162 pounds, we have Jason Mendez, the beast from the east. He is here with a special guest today, his own sister. My name is Patrick Pac-Man Fedez. We are the dynamite crew of Life and In Between, and today's program has been brought to you by coffee. Remember, coffee, nature's way of saying, I love you. Now, without any further ado, Jason Mendez.
¿Qué pasó, everybody? ¿Qué pasó? It's a beautiful day. It is Friday. Can y'all believe it? It's Friday.
Traffic.
Traffic, that's the only thing.
Traffic.
So today, I'm so happy and proud to have announce our next guest for today. It's my baby sister, Marliza Mendez. She is awesome. Hey, sis, if you didn't know, I had texted my team. I said, why am I so nervous that today I'm going to introduce myself? Why am I so nervous? Why?
Why?
Because I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you, brother. And thank you again for inviting me on y'all's podcast.
I know, it's so awesome. I'm so awesome. Okay, so let me get this started here. Let me talk about you for a second, okay? Let the world know, you know what you've been doing here, okay? So, all right, here we go, y'all. Marliza Mendez is a passionate Tejana filmmaker who thrives in the vibrant Austin indie scene, bringing stories to life through her screenwriting and acting. Y'all didn't know that, huh? She loves to share dark comedy stories, which this is very true. I love that. I was like, when I was watching this stuff, I was like, that is dark comedy. I freaking love it. Yeah. So dark comedy stories centered around the Latinx Tejano experience with themes of paranormal, mystical realism, the afterlife, and the impacts of generational trauma. She's the program associate in the Community Educational Department at the Austin Film Society, a member of Women in Film and Television, Austin chapter, and a board member of the Vortex Theater. Marliza is proud to have received her master's from Northwestern University for Leadership in Creative Enterprise and her bachelor's in Theater Education from the University of Texas at Austin. Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. And she does have a short film out called A Little Prayer. Y'all should check it out. It is freaking cool. And talking about dark comedy, and I loved it. And I did get a little teary eyed because it does hit close to my home. And but proud of that production. And yeah, I would love to talk about how all that got started, but I'll let the team, have questions, and we'll go from there. So proud of you, sis.
Actually, I have a question for you, Jason. Since all the dark comedy is coming out now, do you feel bad because you like dark comedy? Because I love dark comedy, and then I'm like, should I be laughing at this? I don't know.
It's like comedians out there. There's this thing where, like, when do you make fun of the things that are happening to make light of it? Because it's so hard. This has been a thing of me. I wanted to be a comedian, to be straight up. And how do you joke about something that's so hurtful, but at the same time, the whole point is to make light of it, to heal from it. Like, I've never been that kind of person to really joke back, about those kind of things, but at least, you can find humor in it you're supposed to heal, to be able to heal from that, to look back and like, okay, oh, that makes sense. Oh my goodness. Wow. I don't have the words for it, but I know my sister has the brain capacity and understanding how that works, the intelligence, but yeah.
Jeez. This is my first time hearing that you wanted to be a comedian, but that tracks because all my inspiration for whatever I want to tell goes back to my siblings. So,
But unpack that. So the dark comedy, I guess what Jason's saying is that kind of ring true that it's the pains that we can kind of now make light of, and like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I feel like just growing up in first going back where I'll talk about family stuff, but
Okay.
like growing up in a Latino household, but also a very conservative household,
Mhm.
there was just so much like I feel like there was a lot of pain, just a lot of pain. And I remember one of my earliest memories, and hey, we're already getting to like some of the dark stuff. But one of my earliest memories, and I was in kindergarten, but is when my grandmother passed away.
Mm.
And so I was in kindergarten. She passed away from a stroke, but she passed away sitting on the couch, and she was watching me at the time, and I was the one that like found her.
No.
Yeah, and I was in kindergarten, right? And so I remember that moment because I was like, grandma, like touching her, like trying to wake her up. Because I was in kindergarten, I didn't know what was going on. So I just go upstairs to tell my dad, like, hey, grandma's not waking up. And so dad's like, huh? And that's his mother. So yeah, when he comes down the stairs, like he immediately like is crying and like trying to like wake her up. And next thing I know, ambulance are there. And so not going too much into it, but that was like one of my earliest memories as a child. And just being exposed to death like so early in my life. Of course, that like impacts me. And I feel like, grandma passed away. And so one of the big things were funerals. I feel like our family, and so I'm the youngest. I'm like the very youngest, and Jason is the oldest, right? Or one of the oldest. And so he got to grow up with like our cousins and stuff and have all these like Goonie-esque adventures. I didn't really get that because all my siblings were a lot older. Now our brother Vince like started having kids. And so I became an aunt at like 1. So I was like the youngest out of all my brothers and sisters, but the oldest of all my nieces and nephews. So it's kind of like a duality there. But my grandma passed away, and the next thing I know, we're having funerals, and the whole family is coming together. And those were times where the family kind of started coming around a little bit more to spend time at our house, and like every time Jace was over, and our brother Vince and her sister, whenever this particular group would get together, it was story time. It was, okay, let's see who can do the best act for this particular memory. And so, of course, the stories of grandma would always be told. And it helped me a lot to like learn who she was because I really didn't get to know her because I was only like, I was only like 5 when she passed away. But one of my favorite stories that my siblings would tell, and so they would always tell it um, when they were together, 1, and then 2, I know it from each person's point of view. And Jace, you can come in because
Ah,
I wonder if you know what story, but it was the story where someone had fireworks pop off in the backyard. And so our sister had her point of view, Jason had his point of view, and of course our brother Vince, who was kind of like the center of the story, had a point of view. And of course it was grandma coming to like nonchalantly turn on the water hose and like
ah,
water down this ring of fire that was around our brother Vince, who was a little kid at this time. And it's all like, why? First off, why did y'all have fireworks? Second, like we're looking at houses that burned down, but all my siblings would tell the story and act it out in ways to where I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do. I want to be as good as my brother Jason and my brother Vince and my sister in telling these stories. So, like they were always so animated. And yeah, in a way, it was like archival story time within my family, but sharing these memories. And it really did impact me because, of course, it was like sharing memories from the past of a time that I wasn't around, but they were. So yeah, just kind of thinking of where that dark comedy comes from. I'm like, dang, life was started off kind of dark here. So how do we make whole light of this, to continue on? Because yeah, if you dwell on it, if you dwell on the darkness that is like part of life, then it's hard to progress where you want to be,
Mm.
in life and whatnot. So yeah,
So,
that's kind of where that comes from.
and Marlisa, when you put it like that, And Patrick, when you asked that question of the dark comedy, I'm like, that is it was tragic. It was traumatizing. If now that I think about it, of the story that she's actually talking about, and yeah, we could have died. Yeah,
That's how all the stories are, though. Like
That's how the
with y'all
80s were.
too.
The 80s childhood. If you're not about to die, did you even have a childhood? I
Like
mean, we
y'all.
go to the creek when it's raining and, oh, we didn't drown. Yay, we survived another day playing in the creek gutters. And I had a question because this is like yin and yang, total opposites. So dark comedy, but you came from a very conservative, I guess, evangelical type of upbringing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
yeah, how?
how? Well, okay. It was our dad. Our dad grew up like very like Bible thumper, because our grandparents were very, much part of the church and whatnot. Now, I'll admit, so have something happened in our dad's life where he was all like, no more. Like, I don't want to talk about religion. I don't want that part of my household, like type of thing. And that was, I think, before he had kids. So in our household, my dad still had these like very like conservative, like
Yeah.
evangelical like values, but we didn't go to church. We didn't do like some of the traditional things, and he really didn't like talking about religion. I think because of his trauma growing up with it.
What were some of the
Um,
examples, like some examples of that?
Don't mention Jesus in the house.
Oh,
that was like a thing. Yeah, I don't know why.
And then
Um,
and then sis, real quick, 2 years ago, I'm talking to my cousin, Chris, and I don't know how it came up, but I said something, and he goes, you know, cuz why is that? Why was your dad like that? I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I forgot that they had moved in with my grandparents when my parents were getting ready to divorce. And my dad had already lived there at his parents, at my grandparents' house. Well, Chris, my cousin, and his parents, they also moved in. So they're all, it's my dad and my uncle and his family living under my grandparents' house. But there was a time where where same thing. My dad, don't y'all ever, talk about. So my cousin said, well, so why did Uncle Cook didn't want to talk about Jesus in the house? Well, and he said, I even asked Grandma, why is Uncle Cook like that? I'm like, you know about my dad, Chris? Like, how did you know that part? And I forgot they all came together for a little bit. Crazy.
yeah, I didn't know that. Well, I didn't know that they all lived together for a little bit.
He was about 7, 8 years old. Yeah.
Interesting. That's so interesting because I feel like that parallels to us when, like, our grandparent, well, our grandpa and grandma lived with our parents. But when they passed away, a room became open, and so Jason ended up like coming in, and our sister with her kids ended up coming in. At some point in the household, there was like 12 people in our household. And so we're all kind of living together. And I know I'm kind of going off of the original question here, but just to give a little bit more like family info. But sometimes I'll get stuck in this like nostalgia feeling because growing up in high school, when there were 12 people under one roof, those summers were like some of the funnest summers. It would be me, Jace, our sister and her kids, our brother and his kids, and also our sister had a boyfriend at the time that we really liked. So we were all under one roof, and during the summers, like we would be up until midnight. Vince would be cooking his 2 Tostino's pizzas. We would have MTV on, watching like music videos and sitting around a table, like just talking and having a good time. Of course, going back on like those memories and whatnot of the past and sharing all that. But no, those were some of my, looking back, I'm like, crap, those were some of my like best like moments living with the family. And then I get like weird nostalgia because I'm like, oh my gosh, some of those people are gone, so it's like can't do that anymore. But no.
And it's crazy that you're talking about that because Marliza, you were surrounded by a mixture of a combination of 5 to 6 people. all the time.
Yeah, whether I liked it or not. Nah.
No
Um,
privacy. No privacy.
No, I had my room, and that was really important. I was like, this is my room because our space in the household was like very limited. But like, this is mine. But yeah, I was actually thinking earlier today, Jace, how like, oh, I got to grow up in a very multi-generational household. Like I have our boomer father. There was a time where, of course, Grandpa was with us, and so he was part of the silent generation with like the Great Depression and being a World War II vet. And so, like, I feel like I'll get into my grandpa in a second, but just also my brother Jason, who's like Gen X, and then my other brother who is a millennial, and then me, I'm kind of like on the cusp of millennial Gen Z, and then I have my Gen Z nieces and nephews. So yeah, it was a very like wild
No.
multi-generational household, which is also kind of influences like the type of like when it comes to visuals and cinematography and like storytelling. I sometimes go back to like that 80s aesthetic of like when it comes to sound, like synth, or when it comes to the vibrancy of a background and how to use like neon lighting, which maybe you saw in a little prayer, Jace, when we had your lighting and whatnot, or Jace let me use his lighting equipment. So we had a bunch of colors going off. But yeah, so because of the pop culture that my father and my siblings I grew up with, that became part of like what I ingested as well.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah.
I do have a question because I love the way you mentioned that you grew up in a multi-generational household. Do you think being exposed to that has helped you navigate in like right now in the industry that you're in, navigating with this multi-generational groups? Because right now in the workforce, it's multi-generational right now. So do you think that has helped you? Because some young people can't, and it's really difficult for them to navigate.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you point that out, because part of what I do for my like daily work is I work in a workforce development program. So I help out with young professionals who specifically want to get their foot in the door within the TV and film industry here in Texas. And so part of our program is that we have like professional development, because that's something that we notice with like, hey, Gen Z, don't come after me. Like, don't come after me, Gen Z. But there are research that Gen Z is getting fired from the workforce a lot. And I believe what I think is that it's because they don't know how to navigate like certain office politics, and each generation has their own way and style of work, like how to interact with someone who is part of that boomer generation, or how to interact with someone who is part of like Gen X generation. Like it's more of the traditional style of what we conceive as work. Whereas I feel like with Gen Z, it could be a little bit like, well, I'm going to incorporate so much of my style. I'm going to bring in lingo that into like the office room that maybe like this particular generation will understand, but I'm gonna use it anyways. I'm gonna wear what I want when I want, type of thing. So growing up, I think because I've had to learn how to communicate with, I mean, not just my dad, but also like my grandfather, who's part of that silent generation, but with boomer parents. And then I work closely with like Jason on things. And so I feel like a lot of my like higher ups or like around like Jason's era and whatnot. And so I'm able to communicate very well with like my supervisors and whatnot, because they're part of I grew up in the 80s. Like I that's the pop culture like I can also like talk about as well. And just like, yeah. And since I am on that cusp and I have like younger nieces and nephews that I got to grow up with and whatnot, like I'm also able to communicate with them as well. So in a way, I feel a little bit like a chameleon within just how to communicate with people from all different different backgrounds, and very much so like just different generations and whatnot. So and I live with my grandmother, so that's a big part too. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes
That's a skill. That's a good skill.
Yes, that is. I am going through it right now with my folks. There's I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. There's one that got hired, and she was 18 years old, and in
Ooh.
this particular company, you're supposed to be 21.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Did
and
she lie?
I don't know, but
You got to do what you got to do. It's hard out
right,
there.
right. And so she's trying to adapt. A lot of us are trying to adapt. And then there's different ages, but I mean, this is really my first time being on the workforce where you have like 18, 19, 20s, 23s, 24s, and you're seeing a major difference here. And I'm seeing the rest of the like other folks anywhere from their 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s. It's like, dang it, this new generation. And they'll come in, yeah, just pissed off. And but yeah.
Dang. And I think part of that is because of 2020 and COVID. The people who are coming into the workforce, like younger Gen Z generation, like they grew up in a time where they weren't able to have like some of these social skills, and some of these big like milestone transitional periods in their life that we've all traditionally had. And so there is an element missing from them that I am still trying to also figure out, like, is it something that they're going to have to learn, or is it something that we're going to have to adapt to? You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
So a little bit of like those two things. But yeah.
It's interesting that you should say that, because more and more companies, as I realize, are adapting.
Mhm.
And I think it's a halfway in between, as you mentioned. But companies are starting to flex to attract that type of talent, and they have to realize. But yeah, I'm glad you said that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I remember when I was applying for internships when I was in my master's program. And so my whole goal with that particular program is I was trying to get internships at like the name places like HBO and Netflix and stuff like that. But I noticed on their applications that these these companies were specifically looking for like Gen Z interns. And so because of me, I'm kind of like on that cusp, right? I might have lied a little bit. I might have turned my year just a little, like 2 years, knocked off 2 years or something like that, because I was like, okay, I know what they're looking for. And like, I know why. It's because they're trying to hit the Gen Z market, in which I'm like, I can still speak Gen Z, but yeah, so that was something I noticed back in like 2022,
mhm.
up there, 2022. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's like that show Younger. My wife got into that show Younger, where she makes herself younger because they're trying to get a different market and get in there.
Yeah,
Good show.
I
It's a
saw
good
that show. Yeah, and I couldn't help but feel that way. And like within just trying to get an internship. But yeah.
Wow.
That's fun. That's fun. And yeah, I'll let you done. I got so many things I want to ask, but yeah.
No, I was just going to comment. I need to start doing that. I'm going to shave off like maybe good 20 years. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do these days.
Yeah.
Well, so I like to make fun of my friends, because a lot of my friends in their 40s, they're still in Austin. And Austin's a very young, South Austin especially. It's like a very young, hip California, pretty much.
Mhm.
And so my buddies go to, some of the hip churches, and I'm like, I see the photos and I'm just like, dude, those are kids. Like, you're hanging out with all these like 19, 20-year-old kids. And so I've gone out with them sometimes to Riverside, grab some, go to a taqueria and stuff.
Mm.
And I'm just like, these are like the kids I should be speaking to in the schools. Like, these are little kids. What are you doing? What are you doing hanging out with these like 19 and 20-year-olds? Oh, they're just from my church. I'm like, dude, Ricardo, I'm calling you out. Like, dude, like, okay, cool. But that's awesome. It's young, and then it's like, oh, this 19-year-old is making probably like 200,000 living downtown.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeez.
And that's but no, I wanted to kind of dig into this, and so my wife grew up in a very evangelical home. I grew up in a very Christianese, charismatic home, mostly because of the church we went to, and that's what kind of like when I saw your TikToks, my radar was just like, whoa. And
just for a lot of the listeners out there who, they're trying to understand like the evangelical experience and like how did this tie now into politics, and Trump is now God's messenger to us and all this stuff. And I'm just like, what? And so growing up, it was, well, you don't listen to that music because it could have cussing. I'm like, I get it, but what about this music? Well, you don't listen to that music because it could have a spirit attached to it. And you don't want to listen to that music. And you kiss dating goodbye. So you're not going to go to prom, because if you go to prom, that's sin. And I went to prom and I almost like got excommunicated. And so it was this whole, I don't want to call it cultish movement, but it was like you live in this bubble. And now there's this whole Christian reckoning where a lot of people, a lot of followers of the faith, they're kind of stepping away, or kind of what my wife and I are doing is like kind of stepping back and just looking at it like, really, there was one moment where I was at a church and everybody was slain in the spirit, 300 people slain in the spirit. And then here I am just standing, just like, okay, how come I'm not laying down? What happened? Is this group think? Is this herd mentality? Like, what's going on here? And so this whole thing just kind of it's out in the public eye now, because,
social
the
media
powers that be, and so I'm just like, that is so cool that you come from that, but you also kind of, in your own special humorous dark comedy way, kind of push back on that. And that gives power to so many people, because faith is identity. What happens when you lose your faith and you start losing identity? Because that's happened to a lot of people in our circle. But then I saw your stuff. I'm like, she's making it humorous and she's pushing back in this way. Like, why the heck would you vote for this guy? He oppresses women. He does this. Well, Lord, this and that. It's like, come on. So I'll just kind of park that pizza right in front of you. You take a slice and
No.
Yeah.
A pepperoni with jalapenos. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So really quick, wanted to touch on music, because growing up, I was not allowed to listen to anything with like cussing in it, or even watch like anything with like, I don't know, could have a little something in it, I remember one time my sister had the Gwen Stefani CD with bananas. And so
Sinners.
I had put it in my like little Barbie boombox, and the moment she started, this is bananas, I was like, and then one time my dad walked in to be listening to it. It's a good song. I love that song. And maybe I was like 6 or something, but he was like, turn it off. I'm like, don't get mad at me. And I feel like
No, I was just saying, why did Dad always come in when you're like learning something? It's like he would always come in on those moments.
He would always, Dad, just with it, his spirit is that he knew when to come in to yell at us, okay.
With some music, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back to my train of thought. Growing up, and so kind of going back to a question you asked earlier about like growing up in like that conservative like household. I growing up, I felt like my parents, I would always think of it as like, oh, they're overprotective or like, whatnot. But looking back, I feel like there was a little bit of a restriction of expression within the household, like, within the type of music that you listen to, with like, what are you watching? I had to let my parents know at all times, like what I was doing. I really wasn't allowed to like go out and like play with friends because they would be scared I would get kidnapped or something. And still to this day, like as an adult, I'll go to Walmart like around like 8, and my grandma's like, no, don't, you'll get kidnapped. I'm like, literally, please stop.
Well, nowadays ICE might get you.
Oh my God.
I know nowadays, you never know.
Yeah, so gotta watch out. So there was kind of like this oppression of expression within the household, and especially being like a girl. I don't know. My dad had this like very like still like machismo mentality where it's like, no, you gotta do what I say when I say only type of thing. So I remember one time I was invited to like a swimming pool party with my best friend that everyone knew. My parents like knew their parents and stuff like that. But my dad was like, no, you're not going. And I'm like, but I did have a little bit more leniency than my siblings growing up, I later learned. Whereas, for instance, in 5th grade, I was allowed to go to the skating rink with my friends, but I was with like a group of like other girls and stuff, which is one of the best skating rinks in Cedar Hill. It's like one of the longest running skating rinks, and there's so
Still
much
alive.
history in it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So show some love to that skating rink. But yeah, so that was also a time where I was like learning how to socialize as like adolescence and teenager and stuff like that. So I'm glad I at least got that, you know what I'm saying?
I'm just not realizing. I thought that was just a jerk.
What do you mean? Like for you or like
Well, just overall in general, but that machismo thing, like
it's much
we weren't
yes.
allowed to express, and wow, I'm so sorry, sis. Like that's just, and then
Eh,
that also goes back down to our other sister.
yeah, it was a different story.
Yeah,
Different story.
just to put it out there, she's
The After Hours podcast.
Yeah,
Honestly. But yeah, no, machismo was a big part. And I also feel like that also stems a little bit from the I hate saying the word because I actually can't pronounce it that well, but evangelism.
Evangelism,
In-
evangelical.
I have this thing where if there's too many L's or too many I's, then I have an issue.
Because you listened to that secular music growing up. It got
Yeah.
you.
But yeah, okay, so when it comes to that, and also like my dad also kind of suppressed us from like spirituality and like faith, because he didn't want to talk about Jesus in the household. So I grew up not,
confusing.
yeah, it was really confusing. And so we have family members, majority of his siblings are all like pastors and ministers that lead their own church, And so it was really wild growing up because I would always wonder, like, oh, why don't they come and visit? Or why don't they come and talk to us, And I'm like, oh, it's us. So that's also where a little bit of the comedy moment comes in, because I felt like our family didn't want to talk to us unless someone died, and so then they were forced to like come in and like talk to us and whatnot. But I've always wondered, I always thought it was like, oh, it's because we're not religious, that they don't want to talk to us. But actually, there might be some other stuff going in there that I'm still learning about. That I'm like, oh, maybe it wasn't just us, But I started recently, I've kind of been looking at faith. And so I'm in this position where like, oh, I get to choose. And that's like what my mom intended, right? Is that she wanted me to choose for myself, like where I go, where I land. And so, yeah, just kind of with the movement right now that we're seeing with like Christian nationalism and then like politics and how they're kind of infusing, and that's like incorporating like some really scary laws within like our country. I'm all like, well, I want whatever like religion or faith I fall into. I need it to be part of like my morals. Like I feel like the morals and the being a good person is being lost of this whole, faith-based stuff here. And yeah, I kind of growing up and also with like my dad, who was probably not the nicest person, like let's be honest. I kind of had to navigate certain like bully things on top of like I also had, I won't say which one, but I also had a sibling who didn't really know how to control like their emotions, to where they would just start yelling at like their kids and causing like the household to get really like just kind of become a scary place, honestly. And so I think growing up in these types of like, oh yeah, brother.
Marley, only because I'm not asking you because it kind of glitched. We had a sibling that didn't have control, or what was it again?
Like we had a sibling who like really couldn't control their emotions. So whenever like one of the kids would get in trouble or something like that, like sometimes the police would get called, 'cause that's how bad it would get. Like the neighbors would call police and stuff like that. And so kind of growing up in this weird like system of, there's trauma happening, whatnot. I kind of see how I just kind of saw within my own family like how it could go back to like religion and stuff like that, and whatnot. I can't think right now of like specific examples, but it's helped me navigate, like me personally, like what faith want to do or what I'm leaning towards, on top of how to tell people who are like, well, if you don't follow the Lord, X, Y, Z, I'm just like, well, shut up, because are you actually a good person at the end of the day? You know, like, who did you vote for? Yeah. I'm like, well, do you like your name? You know? So yeah, I think growing up in that type of household, having to navigate certain like bully situations, which led to, you know, we are in Texas, which is a very religious state in itself. And so how to navigate that with like other peers and family members, which also, of course, led me to social media, where, let's be honest, like Facebook is a little wild.
Wild West.
It really is on there. And so at some point, I was like, and I think it was after this recent election, I was all like, why should I let the people who are like obviously not good people take up the space, be loud, like feel so safe that their opinions of like, well, if you weren't born in this country, you need to leave, or you're brown, get out of here. I can't wait for you to not like be here no more. You know, like I'm like, that's a bully. That's a bully. And so I'm going to say something, which led me down that path of like, hey, first off, if anyone does talk back, I recommend changing your name.
This is awesome.
Because yeah, I got into some situations with Facebook, and I know it's like petty because it's like Facebook, but I'm like, no, this is too much of a safe space for the wrong like people, that someone needs to say something. So I would take 10 minutes out of my day just to like you know, like see what I can do. Some of the Lord's work, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so I ended up changing my name because the first person I was all like, I don't know, I talked back to basically, was like, well, I already sent your name to ICE, like, because, you know, the form is anonymous. Yeah, that form is anonymous. And so, and you don't even have to like have like concrete evidence if someone wasn't born here. You can just have a hunch and put that in. I'm like, okay, Germany, you know, but so I was like, okay, yeah, for safety reasons, let me change my name. Let me delete some of these pictures. Like, if I'm going to do this, then I might as well keep like, you know, some of my family safe as well. Cause you know, the last thing I need is like them, what do you call it? Doxing people. Cause like these people are crazy. Like, let's be honest. Like these people are freaking crazy.
I had to call the FBI once on a Facebook follower. Like, I got the FBI involved. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, how can I be crazier? You know? And yeah, I would, you know, screenshot those comments, and then it led me to TikTok. And then I gotta say, when I started posting those videos of me, like talking back to these, racist people, basically, that's when my TikTok got hacked. And so I kind of wondered, I questioned, I'm like, does this have something to relate to it? So yeah. And kind of thinking of like trolls in general, you know, besides the Facebook ones. I remember, so on my particular like original TikTok that I had one video that soared, it took off. And it was this really cute video I had of me and my grandmother trying to eat at Chili's. And so I was like, oh, you know, I got my triple dipper, which a triple dipper is like just viral, iconic like thing. And so I'm like, Grandma, can you take a photo or a video of me? And she's like, like she's trying out on her burger. And so I hand her the phone, specifically the way she just needed to hold it, just, you know, point the camera at me, right? Okay, Grandma. And so I look down, get my little chicken tender, and I look up, and for some reason she flipped it. She flipped the phone. And so this video is of me and my grandmother at Chili's, and me trying to like, Grandma, turn the phone around, and it's just her like in every direction, and it's so cute. And that went like semi-viral on TikTok, and you know, got a lot of comments, but there were a couple of comments on there that were like, ooh, someone call ICE, or you know, and it's like a video of my grandmother grandmother, you know? And I was like, okay, these social media platforms are all like different, right? And so on TikTok, I felt like because I was using my name, because that is my grandmother in the video, like, you know, I couldn't really like talk back, you know what I'm saying? So I just ended up deleting them. I'm like, you know what? Block and delete. Like this is not the space for you. And I don't want you like messing with my space. Go away, you know? And so, yeah, so there was a little bit of that just from a cute little video of like me and my grandmother, just because, you know, we're brown or whatever. But yeah, so block and delete these days. I feel like threads, I don't know, like MAGA, y'all have, what is it? Y'all have your own like little Twitter and X, like stay over there. You don't have to infiltrate threads. But yeah, now my threads is all like politics and whatnot and like people fighting with each other. And so, yeah, that's also like a platform that I'm like, I might have to look away from this platform for a little bit because it's just kind of like the same like destruction over and over again, I feel like. Anyways, so that's a little bit of that.
And I think Deanna, you're gonna ask something.
Yeah, I have a question to ask you because what I'm hearing here, and I love so I'm going to backtrack a little bit because you were talking about how in your household your dad really didn't allow you to speak, and then suddenly you become this voice, and you take charge, and you kind of you become an advocate, and you use different means. What I want to know is what ignited that? What was that process that you said, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to take ownership. I'm going to empower myself. I'm going to advocate, and versus you were for so many years kept silent, you know, like you were told, you know. So can you tell me that?
Yeah, thank you for asking this question because it's definitely something I've reflected on a lot growing up. I think the number one thing that changed the course of my life was moving out to go to college at UT. And so that was a whole thing in itself in high school, like growing up. My dad, like, did not want me leaving. Like, he did not want me going. Senior year, I had everything lined up. I worked really hard to like be in like number 8 of my class because I just wanted to sit on a stage. Like that was my whole goal. I was like, I just want to sit on a stage. And so because of that, it opened doors, which meant, because I'm in like the top like 6% of my high school, like I'm able to have automatic admission to certain colleges. And so UT it came down to UT Austin and then UT Arlington. And so my dad was kind of begged, like, you know, you should go to Arlington. It's cheaper. You could stay here. But all my siblings, each one of them like would pull me inside and be like, get out, leave. And so I was like, when we toured UT and everything, I was like, I think this is the right move. And also on top of that, like my dad really did not want me going because he was like, you're gonna turn into one of those liberals. Like when you go over there, you're gonna come back and you're not gonna be my daughter and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean by that. Because honestly, like in high school, like, I did not understand politics whatsoever. I get into UT. I spent my 4 years at UT, some of the best 4 years of my life. And because of just certain systems that were put in place, like growing up at Cedar Hill, it was majority like Black and Latino kids. Well, the moment I got into UT, I was like, where are all the Black people? You know, I was like, I actually did not navigate a system like speaking with like white people. Whereas UT, it's like my program was majority white. And I felt like, I don't know, I felt like I really had to practice my communication style and a little bit of like, what does that code switching look like within that space? And so with some of the classes and some of the instructors that I had who were all advocates in their own way, and especially like theater itself, theater is an expressional art form where you're also able to like advocate for yourself. And so within UT, I studied like social justice theater. And the power of that and sharing with like community and spaces, these stories, and the importance of archiving stories and being able to use that for like theater processes and researching dramaturgy and all of that. I would join protests on campus and stuff. In 2016, it was interesting because like I was in college 2016, and that was the first like election that Trump won. And so like the protests on campus were wild and whatnot. And so yeah, I started learning how to talk. I had to learn about myself and why I felt like, oh, I'm scared to raise my hand in class to ask questions. Why is that? It's because I was told not to ask questions growing up because I should have already known like what to do. That was kind of like the household, rules or whatever. I would see other people like struggling in a way. And so I would be like, well, how can I help other people? And yeah, it just kind of led me down this advocate pathway. And also the importance of being able to communicate like what's on your mind. One big thing is like I am not allowed to talk about politics with my dad because he immediately gets angry and starts calling me like names and stuff. And so I'm like, that's so weird that you can't have a conversation because I've been able to have many, at in college level and stuff. But I think number one of how I've just kind of been able to do this is because I took myself out of a space where I wasn't allowed to and made it possible within like these new opportunities that have come my way. Yeah. And so sometimes I think back, I'm like, okay, what would have happened if I did stay? And I think about that, and I think about that person, and I think because I also have like a very like visionary like storytelling mind, I'm like I feel like, and also pattern recognition, like that's also a skill that I oddly have. It's just pattern recognition. And so I don't know. I'll think back, and I'm like, who is that? Who would have been that person if she stayed? And honestly, I don't think she would have learned how to drive. I think she would have already like gotten married to like a bad relationship. I don't know if she would have been able to like reach her dreams within like theater and like storytelling and making films and stuff like that. Like I think that that's what would have happened if I would have stayed home. I would have stayed the same environment. So yeah, I'm like, I want to advocate for everyone else out there to like, take that next step in educational journey as well, because I feel like that was a big part of this. Yeah.
Oh,
Your
I
hero's,
love that.
yes, your hero's quest.
Yes.
Oh gosh, that
The
is
product
so
of your environment.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I just have to give thanks to Marliza. I mentioned this before in our other podcast. Marliza is the one that helped me understand. At my age, I think that was I was 45, 46. I was struggling at that Fortune monster company that Diane and I were at, and I was telling my sister like, here's what's going on, and she recognized, and she goes, "Brother, do you know what imposter syndrome is?"
That's so interesting that you bring that up, because that's actually something that I teach and talk about within our workforce development program. Yeah, I literally just had an imposter syndrome discussion with some of our participants like last week. And so it's definitely changed. So imposter syndrome itself, of course, is like feeling like you are a fraud within the opportunities that you have received, where it's like it's hard for you to recognize like your hard work, how you got here.
Wow.
You feel like everyone sees like through you and whatnot. And so that's also like a really important thing. I feel like in all industries, but also thinking of film and television, it's also like a really big thing. But yeah, part of the discussion was that there's an article that came out in 2021 called "Stop Telling Women That They Have Imposter Syndrome," because what we're learning is that saying that we have imposter syndrome and whatnot, or telling someone that they do, puts all of the work on the individual to like figure out, okay, well, how do I navigate this? How do I work with this? Where Actually, it's also your environment as well. Like, where are you that these systems feel like they're pushing against you? And, and it kind of relates all back to the isms, like the racism, the classism, the ageism and whatnot. And so, yeah. And, kind of thinking back, ageism is also like a big one, too. I mean, we were just discussing how, like, I changed the date of my birth on some of these applications just to get in. But yeah. And so of course that's going to cause like an imposter syndrome feeling if you were in that environment. Cause it's all like, oh, I'm actually not I'm actually not as young as y'all thought I was. Which, yeah, but like what system was put in place for that to happen? It's because I don't know, these companies kind of have already relayed this information of like who they're looking for. Therefore, it's like, well, now I feel like my worth is like less or something just because of like my age or whatever. And so, yeah, just kind of looking. So kind of taking imposter syndrome and seeing how it's a two-way street of like, it may be like your internal feelings, but also what is the environment that you're in. So.
Great point.
That's so
actually
good.
good.
Yeah, so good.
It
And
is.
how many people deal with that because of what you said earlier, the oppression of expression and the religious upbringing. You can hear my little one having a meltdown in the background.
Oh no.
Yeah, he's like, don't oppress people, don't oppress them. But this is what I love, because everything you're talking about is exactly what's needed, is for people to step out of their norm, leave where they are, and get out of the environment that might be stifling them. And
it's hard.
At UT, you were around a different demographic of people. It forced you to grow. It helped you. But overall, you took your power and you gave it a voice. And like for my wife, this is what I shared it with your brother some, but how you empowered her just by your TikToks, because my wife was doing some work, UGC work for a client. And so she was going live for 2 hours a day, pitching their products. Somehow all these trolls started coming in to the chats. Oh, well, this and that. And she's a white woman, but it was white guys, black guys all over, just, salivating, but then also getting very crude. And so she started getting like, what's happening? And she would have to, block and delete. So by the third day, this kept happening. I'm like, this is messed up. Talk to your client. What can they do to help moderate? And they're like, well, they're not doing anything. So that's, yeah. And so that's after I think Jason had sent me your TikToks. And I'm like, that is so awesome. And so what I did on the fourth day, I became Fellowship Frank on TikTok, and I would go troll the trolls. I would get in there and start going, not just like pushing back, like, oh, you like sausage, huh? Jacob 2632. Well, did you know? But then I would go into their profiles and learn stuff about them, and then put that in the chat. So they're turning all of it. And so to see you do that, because I saw, you sing a song with your guitar pushing back. You had a whole so today on today's TikTok, we're talking about Brad. Brad said this. And it's like cucarachas. Once you shine the light on them, so scary. You're taking the power, and this is what I think is so powerful, is that what you're doing just with speaking up. How many people live in oppressive relationships because they don't speak up? How many people work for a toxic boss because they don't speak up? And a majority of these people are women. It's the women, because y'all have been conditioned like, oh, in the church, you submit to your husband, you submit to the man. The man is the head of the household, the leader, this and that. Is like, how many people have been oppressed, abused because, this doctrine, this seed was planted where you just keep quiet. And then you're showing, look, you have a voice. You have worth beyond service to who you're with or whatever. And so I just give you kudos on that, because the trolls are anywhere, like your grandma, a picture of your grandma, then here come the trolls, call ICE. It's like, como, it's everybody's in power now, and it's been like that. But yeah, it's cool to see people standing up, speaking back,
Yeah. And I think this also kind of goes back a little bit to like my comedy style. I've always had this motto within myself. It's all like, I'm great at embarrassing myself, but like, don't you dare try to embarrass me type of thing. And so with my comedy style, I've also been able, and I did just also like growing up in like a harsh household or whatever. I've had to develop one like thick skin, but also how to be able to laugh certain things off. And especially when people are like coming at you like these trolls, like how to be able to like troll back in a witty way to where it's comedic. And so with comedy, it takes the power out of the person who is trying to be like mean, right? Before you know it, comedy is a great like defense mechanism in itself, and it also like makes the other person who is being like the bad guy or whatever. It also has to make them stop, because what are you going to do? Like continue like double down? Are you going to double down? Are you going to think of something funnier? Because I doubt you can, because all you do is just, you're seeing red right now. You're just being like, I'm trying not to cuss.
Yeah, and I was about to say, like como friega with all these, people that
Yeah.
bring it.
And so I've also like developed a comedy style to where it's also like, well, I'm going to use this for advocacy. I'm going to use this for good. And I've been trained by some of the best people. I will say my siblings, my brother Jays, my sister, and my other brother, and also my dad. Like my dad is a very funny guy, and so I've been trained by these people growing up my whole life. And literally, if I can handle like whatever mean stuff my dad has done or has said, like I truly believe I can handle like anything at this point. So I'm like, well, sure, yeah, no, go off, but I'll probably go off a little louder,
That's so true, Marliza, that you're saying that, because I do put it out there where I have a poker face. That one of my superpowers is I have a poker face. I developed that from him. It's one of those where, there's people throughout life where they just want a reaction from you, right? They'll throw something out, they'll yell at you and everything. It's almost like a military thing where they're teaching you how to, stay calm, under the most, severe type of things going on in life and everything. But dad, yeah. No,
Yeah.
and
Wait, it was so funny because Jason, you recently did this, and I like kind of lost it. But we were having like a family dinner on Monday at Portillo's,
oh,
and then we're all sitting there, right? Jace, he orders what he gets, what his heart desires, and so my dad had to make a comment about like, son, you gonna eat all that, and Jace just stares at him. 2 beats go by, and he's like, your eyes look almost normal now. And then he goes back to what he's doing. Our dad recently had freaking plastic surgery on his eyelids because they were drooping down. Like, okay, he did need it. He did need it. But it was just kind of funny because I was all like, 2 beats go by, silence, and then just like, your eyes almost look normal now. And I'm like, I know where
That's awesome.
oh my God.
And I think I was the only one at the table laughing because I was like, so funny.
I'd say that to my dad, and then Marliza just goes crazy, ballistic, and I'm just, okay, that was funny.
It's gonna be in one of her films later. It's gonna be one of her short films or something.
My sister doesn't know this, but this is how bad my dad is, and I have to be careful myself because you learn this from your parents. My mom, growing up, I think I was like 9 years old, and she would say, I'm grateful that because of your dad when he was when we were married. I said, why? Because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be working out. I go, okay. Yeah, he'd always tell me that I was fat all the time.
Dang.
Oh, okay. And so reverse psychology, I guess he would do 24/7, right? That's his style. If you think about it, Marliza, right? Reverse psychology is just, it's sick. It's worse of everything. It doesn't work for me, but it worked for my mom. And, but look where they're at now. So, but then at the same, we wouldn't meet Marliza.
That's interesting. I didn't know Dad was like that with his first wife. Because me and Jason have different moms, and so my mom came into picture. But my mom was raised by my grandma, right? And so my grandma, who I live with, like, I feel like a lot of my voice stems from her, because she is one of those, like, she'll immediately say what's on her mind, and you're not going to take advantage of her, like, type of thing. And she is 78, and so she's been like this her whole life, where she's all like, I don't like that, I'm not going to do that, and I'm like, okay, grandma. And so my mom, she's very much like, I feel like I get a lot of my inspiration from her, because I think she's always wanted me to kind of like, she understood what kind of household I was growing up in an odd way, and was so proud to finally be like, go, like, do what you got to do, type of thing. And I think she's proud of that I'm like pretty independent in a way, also independently minded too. But she's kind of like, well, she is like the head person of
Yes,
like when it comes like paying bills and stuff like that. So it's and she talks back to my dad too. Like that's the big thing. My mom talks back, and I think that's a big deal. Within all of this, like, yeah, like my mom isn't me like, don't you go saying this or don't you go saying that, type of thing. So yeah,
Y'all should do like a woman empowerment summit or something,
Well,
how to navigate the patriarchy of 2025 and
patriarchy.
get your voice back.
I'm wondering, maybe we might bring your mom on here one day, Marliza.
Maybe she gets nervous, we'll say, but
Yeah, she's a nurse at the which hospital?
she was a nurse at the VA hospital. Now she's got moved to a smaller one, because during 2020 they were doing like, what do you call it, shrinking. But yeah, she works at a different hospital now. But she works not strictly, but she works predominantly with veterans. So
Okay. If it wasn't for her mom, if it was for Mama Janie, yeah, she holds the fort. She's the glue of everything. So yeah, and so when my baby sister, when she got out, I was like, yes, she's gonna do it. She's gonna follow her dreams, and she's gonna grow. She's gonna see the world for what it is, because being in that house, you're not gonna learn anything. Go ahead, Diane. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to ask one quick question. I know, this is really great stuff, and we're coming like close to ending. But before we come to an end, I really wanted to talk about your last film, A Little Prayer. I kind of wanted you to just, walk us through it, and the inspiration process, your thought process, and what do you hope to leave for your viewers? Like, I just, if you don't mind.
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try not to get like teary-eyed because it's early in the morning, but so I can go as far back as when I was in high school. I auditioned for theater roles and whatnot, and so we have this thing called one act competition in Texas, because everything has to be a competition. So the arts is a competition in itself. And so for one act, we were doing Eurydice, my junior year of high school. And I was like, okay, I'm all in. Like I prepared everything because I really wanted to lead Eurydice. And I thought I had it. Well, what ended up happening is that my best friend ended up getting Eurydice, and I ended up being a stone, which I was like, okay, but my theater director pulled me aside, and he was like, hey, I wanted to let you know that, you didn't get this role because you're not talented, but it's just because she's smaller and more petite and, a little bit more feminine. And at that time, I did not know exactly what that meant. I just kind of was like, oh, okay, I get it. It wasn't until college where, I'm learning all of my like theater education background and like how to speak to kids and stuff like that I was like, that shouldn't have been said to me, It was also a moment where I realized, and probably years later, as I said, like in college, where I was like, oh, even if I'm good, even if I'm like talented or whatever, like things like it's going to depend on the other person if like, based on how I look, and so that made me go, well, that's no fair because I am a specific type. I'm Latina, my Spanish isn't that great. So sorry. Yo no hablo español, pero estoy practicando, everybody. There you go. But it led me down a path where, okay, I'm going to have to do my own things. Like I'm going to have to write my own stuff. I'm going to have to if no one's gonna see like what I see myself, then I'm gonna have to let it be known in a way. And so that was like a lot of work in itself because I'm all like, well, do I write? What do I do? You know? So I was like, well, let me develop these writing skills. And so over the course of my life, you know, going all the way back to my grandmother, you know, death, and then my grandfather who passed away in 2012, I believe. And so that was a big moment because it was like we were watching him as he was passing away type of thing, you know? And so that was like, that was actually a very scary time. But yeah, so that was another moment. But when my grandpa passed away, he was like in his 80s. You know, he was 86. He's lived a full life. So it's all like, okay, goodbye, grandpa, you know? But then came 2020. And so 2020, COVID, we're all having to take these extra precautions because in our family, we had people who were, what's the word? High.
Immune
Underlying.
compromised. Immune
Yeah,
compromised.
we have people in our family who are immune compromised. Well, you know, one thing leads to another. Someone ends up going out to hang out with a friend who had COVID and then brings it back to the house. And so it's this big, scary thing because our brother Vince, who was in his 40s and just or his diabetes like just started acting up like the year before. And so he was having to take all these extra precaution, like all these extra precaution steps because like he's immunocompromised. Like COVID is deadly to him. And for some reason that wasn't clicking in people's heads, you know? And so because COVID got brought into the house, my brother Vince decided to leave and he was like, all right, I'm going to a hotel. See y'all later. And if someone would have told me that would have been the last time I would ever saw him, I would have gone down to say bye to him in person, you know? And so that was also like a big moment in life where I was all like, well, okay, my brother ended up passing away because he got COVID and his diabetes. And so it was really bad. It was so traumatic because I was like, growing up, I expect that, you know, me and my brothers and sisters would be going around the same time, not now, you know? And so I watched my dad like break down because he lost a kid. I watched him have to tell my nephew because
Lost his dad.
Yeah, that's his dad. And it was just horrific. And it really changed, like, I don't know. I think I also felt depression because it's like the light went out, like everything was gray. On top of like I ended up getting COVID and I couldn't smell or taste. Like I had parosmia for 2 years because COVID was brought into the house. I caught it because I shared a drink with the person, and I shared a drink. I was in the household and everything. It was bad. And so losing our brother, it just kind of led me down this weird, like, you know, I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling angry. Like, why would this happen? How come no one? It was also the time where a lot of people were like, "Oh, screw masks," or like, "We're gonna go out and live our life." Like, literally, my brother died because of like people, you know, not taking these extra precautions and stuff. And it just made me so angry because I was like, kind of looking at religion and stuff, where sometimes it's like, well, if this is what God intended, if this is what God wanted, I'm all like, well, this isn't fair, you know. And so one February 2023, I just kind of wrote my little heart out and kind of imagined this party person who is trying to like enjoy life, but it's hard to because they just went through COVID, where it's like, how are you supposed to enjoy life when like others didn't get to because they passed away? And also, like, what does it mean for God to actually like answer your prayers or to actually like respond back? Was something that I was interested in exploring. And of course, in A Little Prayer, the short film that I did, and I completed. Production happened July 2023, and then everything was final by April of 2024. And so with that particular story, I just kind of wanted to not let like my brother's you know, light dim or like die off, but kind of like showcase like, you know, he's still an important person in my life, even though he's not here anymore. So I did end up using like his real like photo and prayer and whatnot. But yeah, just kind of thinking of a story where it's like this tragic thing happened to the whole world, not just us. And it feels like we're not allowed to talk about it. And so I'm going to call upon the one person who they all say, you know, if this is what God intended, then like freaking talk to me, because why did you intend this to happen? Millions of people dying and stuff like that, especially, and like taking, you know, someone very close for me and whatnot. And then it coming down to like, oh, it's not God, it wasn't religion. It's like, it comes down to us being a community and having to like navigate that. But yeah, so that was a little prayer. That was the story. That's where it was inspired from. All my stories, I feel like, are inspired from like real life events and stuff, because it's just what I know.
Where can
Yeah.
listeners watch it? Where can they?
Yeah, it's on YouTube, A Little Prayer. It's I just made it public. I had it unlisted because I was submitting it to festivals and stuff. But I'm like, you know what? I want people to see it. So I have it public now.
Nice.
Very cool, Marliza. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, that's heavy.
Thank
That's
you.
heavy. And wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a dark comedy too, because it's like you're dealing with heavy stuff, but I'm like, this girl just got done like clubbing and she's throwing up in the restroom, you know? Like the best time to get spiritual. Yeah.
That is crazy.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. And I know, Patrick, you had one question that you still have not asked, and I didn't want to steal your
I've got all of my
thunder.
graphic novels. I've got all of my thousands of comic books and everything.
What?
So where was this place you went and they had like the free comic giveaway? And when can I borrow the Godzilla and the monsters?
Yeah. I enjoy reading comic books. I think they're a great inspiration for when coming up with like the visuals that you need for a story. But Free Comic Book Day was May. Oh, I need to look it up. It might be May 3rd. It is a particular day in May. I know. And so in Austin, there's a comic book store called I think Dungeons and Dragons. Dragons. Here, give me 5
I think
seconds.
that's the one down south.
Comic book Dungeons.
Dragon's Lair thing.
Dragon's Lair. There we go. Yes, it's Dragon's Lair. And so it was my first time participating in Free Comic Book Day. And I did not know what to expect. My friends were like, this is the best place to do it. And yeah, it was so cool. Just a bunch of like free comic books laid out on a table. It seems like the comic book companies are very aware of Free Comic Book Days and make specific issues for Free Comic Book Day. But yeah, I can send the Godzilla one and the other one. I have like 25 of them.
That is awesome. No, that is way cool.
Yeah.
I collected them growing up, and I was like, I'm gonna be rich one day when I sell my Death of Superman comic. And now it's like, they're worth nothing.
There is a place in, I think, Cedar Park, across from a Pluckers and the Lakeline Alamo. I can't remember exactly what this place is called, but they have a bunch of like collectible items, like comic books. JC, you would love this, but like I saw some Spawn toys there, or action figures. Sorry, but like all these like different
Not a doll, a Spawn doll.
Yeah, it's a place in Cedar Park that I recommend because it's really cool. It feels like you're going into a museum. I can't remember the name though.
I think we're going up to Round Rock this weekend. I could tally over to that area.
Yeah. I'll send it to Jace and forward all that once I find out the name.
Cool. We're all a bunch of nerds.
You are on that thread in the Gmail, by the way. Everybody's on there, so you can also put it in there too as well. Well, I know we're getting close. Does anybody else have any follow-up questions as well?
I mean, I have a lot more questions, but I mean, I will drag this to the top.
Yeah, I wanted to dig into the TikTok videos and like talk about the stuff. So yeah, well,
We can always have a part 2. Yeah, most definitely. Have a part 2 with everybody, actually. Yeah.
exactly.
Awesome. All right.
Yay! And for those of y'all still listening out there, don't forget to subscribe. We will have, I think, JR next week, or when is? We have a lot of people coming. I'm lost.
Then we have so next week is going to be, we have JR, we have Lisa, and then we have Bhuvana.
Awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, well, it's exciting.
Thank you so much. And if you guys have any time, once I just want to talk about something very quickly, and we can wrap it up. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and TikTok. Okay, we're all over Instagram. I mean, like we're so cool. Yeah, and our website. So don't forget to go to our website.
There we go.
Yay.
Awesome. Yay.
And let me tell you, exciting news. We have gone all the way as far as Saudi Arabia. We are now in China. We are in Vietnam. We are now in Russia. We have now reached Germany, France. And I cannot believe this. I got to show you the demographics and the data. There are people that are pulling up our website. I'm like, oh my gosh.
That is crazy. How do we know these aren't like trolls? I'm not trolls, the scammers trying to hack into us.
It could be, that could be true. But that's
They're looking for
okay.
Marliza.
Well,
That's cool.
if we have trolls, that means we're famous.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Because the negative numbers are also positive numbers.
Yes.
That makes sense.
There you go. There you go. Well, congrats on that expansion. That's awesome. And also, thank you again for having me on.
You're very
Thank you.
welcome, Marliza. Thank you, sis. I'm so happy for this episode. So now I have 3 episodes to edit.
Yeah, you're busy.
You're going to be busy.
I know. We can do this.
And actually, Jason, your video, your short on YouTube, you got the most. We got up to 1,000 views on Is DEI a Lie? So you win. You win this week's challenge.
Wow.
Yeah, yours is out there. I'm telling you, it's the numbers are good.